Parker, do you blame anyone for Mike and Yvonne's death?
Yes, sir, in a way I do. Because they should have had a rear exit to those apartments. They could not get out through the front door. They were found in the shower, which was in the back part of their apartment. And had they had a back door and a fire escape, they could have gotten out.
How do you plan to go about getting something done about this problem?
I plan on going before the city council, as high as I have to go, anybody I have to go to make them put them in existing apartments and ones they're going to build, and for it to be a city ordinance to have a back door and a fire escape.
Certainly, every individual doesn't sell himself to the community as well as he could, but we are getting the job done. We've done a lot of projects in communities across this state, and I think the city fathers in all communities like what we're doing. We have good rapport with our communities, but one of the real keys is that it's up to the individual chapter to do the job that he said that he would do. And then the community has that respect for them if they get the job done. And that's up to each Jaycee chapter.
As head of the Texas State Jaycees, do you have any way of reaching more young men?
Yes, I think that this has to be one of my top priorities.
This depot is not unlike 1,000 other depots, and Farmersville, Texas is not unlike 1,000 other small towns in this country. It's made up of a lot of salt-of-the-earth people who yet believe in working for a living, going to town on Saturday morning and church on Sunday. But Farmersville is different in one respect. It has two famous native sons, one famous, the other infamous. Audie Murphy, the war hero movie star, and Charles Watson, the accused slayer of 7 persons in California. Audie Murphy grew up quietly here. He was an orphan who went only to the 6th grade. Charlie Reich, who runs the drugstore here in Farmersville, told me that he only remembers Audie because in those days he had a bad habit of messing up his comic book section and never buying a comic book. Nobody noticed much when Audie Murphy went off to war, but they certainly noticed when national magazines began landing on those same newsstands where Audie Murphy once messed up the comic sections. Those magazines told how almost single-handedly he captured an enemy garrison, how, though wounded, by himself he turned back an attack by 250 Germans and 5 tanks. Audie Murphy came home in 1945 with 3 wounds and 14 major medals. And he came home at the head of a parade, and about the greatest thing that had ever happened to Farmersville, Texas. He stayed around Farmersville long enough to whip the town bully for berating his medals, then he went off to Hollywood to make motion pictures. Charles Watson grew up in the little 2-store highway community of Copeville, just outside Farmersville. He worked in his parents' store and taught Sunday school at the church across the highway. At Farmersville High School, he was a star athlete. 3 years he made the all-district team in football. He was a state record holder in track. He also was an A and B student. He was voted most versatile by his classmates. Watson went off to college at North Texas State University, but in his second year there, he strangely dropped out and went to California. Charles Watson returned home quietly last winter, a bearded, introverted, different Charles Watson. Then came the shocking realization to this community that their high school hero had been arrested. He was charged with the brutal, ritualistic slayings of actress Sharon Tate and 6 others in California. Charles Watson sits in this jail in McKinney today, awaiting extradition to California. He will face those charges there. 2 native sons, 1 famous, 1 infamous. To the people of Farmersville and Copeville, it's all a little frightening. It means that those big city evils they have been hearing about and reading about for so long, at last have invaded their communities. Perhaps parents in a lot of small towns should be just a little afraid. This is Tommy Ayers in Farmersville for Channel 8 News.
Mr. Parker, what are your feelings concerning the rear egress to the apartment?
Well, I feel that they should have them on all of them. I feel that they should have a back door, a fire escape, and I think they should have one. Should be made to put one on all of them.
Mine might be alive today.
Yes, sir, they would have been.
Captain, what is the position of the fire department in this case?
Well, I would state that the fire department did a very good job stopping the fire, but it was so intense in that one area and spread so fast, it was impossible for some of the occupants to evacuate.
Has the fire department established any sort of policy concerning rear egresses?
Well, the fire department always has been for a second means of exit from every dwelling unit.
Do you think there might be something done about it now? And if so, do you think the department will take the lead in this matter?
Well, whether it would be the department or the building inspector, I wouldn't definitely state, since it is a building code problem.
Do you think there might be some action before the city council within a short time?
Well, let's hope that we might have something come up.
Are there other cities in the state that still require the rear exit?
I couldn't definitely state, although there were 2 means of egress from the building itself, and the code does require 2 means of egress. That's from the corridor and not the unit. In other words, once a person evacuates from a unit or dwelling unit into a corridor, there are 2 means of egress, and there were in this case. It was just one of those things that happened, and the fire spread so fast that people didn't have much of a chance or didn't want sufficient warning to evacuate in time.
Malcolm, can you describe the resolutions that were passed during the past convention?
Yes, the main resolution that I was most proud of was a resolution that stated that we are opposed to any act of violence, regardless. I think that every citizen of the United States has the right to dissent. But we stated in this resolution that any act of violence, regardless of whether it was for dissent or what, we could not tolerate, and we urge all people to fight against any act of violence for any reason. We oppose this. And furthermore, we commend the President of the United States, not as Mr. Nixon, but as our President, to continue his efforts. And we urge Congress and the people of the United States to unite for a lasting peace in Southeast Asia.
Well, we've been trying to get a theater of this kind. We've been interested in a theater of this kind the last 10 years. We've had several plays which had practically all black cast, but we could never find a group of blacks who really wanted to devote themselves to developing a black theater before. I don't think they feel they have time to write little light, amusing plays, which will come later, I think, But right now, the next, I should think, 10 or 15 years, it's going to be very strong, probably mostly protest plays, plays which discuss the problems which they're having in their life and relationship with themselves and with the whites and with the world at large.